was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use, 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words, American dream. That was not good what he did. There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for...
Let's take a trip to the before times. For years, Donald Trump desperately tried to become a name in politics. He donated to various causes and campaigns, largely in service of his own ego and, well, the reason a millionaire or billionaire always does this: to earn political favors and to shield himself from potential future prosecutions related to his businesses. After all, recent revelations showed he had cause for concern. His connections with political movers and shakers also allowed Trump free publicity, a way to raise his profile. His businesses have always had their ups and downs, mostly downs, but his celebrity, his name, was something worth trading, worth licensing, eventually paying off in one of the only successful endeavors he had in the 21st century, hosting The Apprentice for a truckload of money per season, starting in January 2004. The Apprentice was a highly profitable endeavor. He used money from The Apprentice to finance other business ventures, many of which failed and bled money. His solution? Continue The Apprentice indefinitely to finance more business ventures. Financial documents uncovered during his presidency told the tale of a failed businessman, living off the product of his father's money and hosting fees for a reality show. According to the New York Times, the documents reveal the hollowness but also the wizardry behind the self-made billionaire image, honed through his star turn on The Apprentice that helped propel him to the White House and that still undergirds the loyalty of many of his base. Ultimately, Mr. Trump has been more successful playing a business mogul than being one in real life. The Apprentice, along with his licensing and endorsement deals that flowed from his expanding celebrity, brought Mr. Trump a total of $427.4 million. He invested much of that in a collection of businesses, mostly golf courses, that in the years since have steadily devoured cash. Much as the money he secretly received from his father financed a spree of quixotic overspending that led to his collapse in the early 1990s. Trump was mired in debt and bankruptcy. The Apprentice, and only The Apprentice, was his life preserver. The first season of the reality series was a huge success, earning a little over 20 million total viewers, according to the Nielsen ratings. It was big enough to have an almost immediate spin-off, The Celebrity Apprentice. We no longer had to wonder who would win in a shouting match between Gary Busey and Meatloaf. However, in subsequent years, The Apprentice and The Celebrity Apprentice started to collapse. In 2007, The Apprentice fell to about 7 million viewers total, and by 2010, only about 4.5 million. The prized 18 to 49 demographic rating that helps determine advertising dollars fell from its original rating of 10.1 in Season 1 all the way down to 1.7. Television contract renewals depend on high ratings, and by the turn of the decade, it looked like NBC was not going to offer Trump the amount of money that he wanted. In 2010, Trump's criminal lawyer, Michael Cohen, had a plan to raise his boss's profile. Cohen urged the National Enquirer to promote a potential Trump 2012 presidential run. This was designed to raise his status during tense contract negotiations, and to force him into the political world for the aforementioned power play reasons. Trump had no real intention of running in the 2012 general election against the at-the-time popular president Barack Obama. None whatsoever. Trump had no campaign staff, no campaign organization, no filing papers, really not much of anything except hints and teases on Twitter and tabloid newspapers. So, how did he keep himself in the news when he was only running for president in theory but not in practice? Well, if you can't be famous, you can at least be infamous. Trump hopelessly tried to become a thorn in Obama's side, promoting the long-debunked racist conspiracy theory about Obama's birthplace, commonly called the birther movement. Trump was absolutely not going to run for president in 2012, but if he could damage the reputation of Obama enough that the popular president lost his re-election bid, Trump could claim ownership of a Republican victory without actually campaigning for president himself. In addition to this new status, Trump could ask a Republican president for a favor or two. It was quite a scheme. Trump previously championed Democrats, but if he was going to position himself as a make-believe presidential candidate, he couldn't be seen as a Democrat if a Democrat was running for re-election. A sitting president is almost never challenged by his own party, and on the rare occasion that this happens, it is seen as unwelcome. Trump planted his flag in the Republican Party instead. Trump has no strong political convictions or morals, only blunt prejudices and an arrogance that can only accompany a billionaire rich kid who doesn't believe in the word no. He was always a little better suited for the Republican Party, but he doesn't really care about that party either. Trump only cares about Trump. In 2011, Cohen's gamble paid off as Trump was invited to speak at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference hosted by the right-wing American Conservative Union. He came to the stage to the strings of For the Love of Money, which he had been using as the theme to The Apprentice. The sometimes clueless Trump may not have realized that the song actually denounces extravagance, its title a reference to the first epistle to Timothy in the Holy Bible. For the love of money is the root of all evil. The evangelicals in the audience probably ignored that, like they did almost everything else about Trump. 2 months later, Trump managed to get himself invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The dinner is an annual event hosted by the White House Correspondents Association. The organization was formed in 1914 when journalists became concerned that elected politicians might one day choose which journalists could and could not cover the administration. Since 1921, they have hosted this dinner, this celebration of sorts, which has been attended by the President of the United States since 1924. President Obama took the opportunity to make a few low-hanging fruit cracks at Trump's erroneous claims.
Donald Trump is here tonight. Now, I know that he's taken some flack lately. But no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac?
Comedian Seth Meyers made a few jokes too.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke. Donald Trump often appears on Fox, which is ironic because a fox often appears on Donald Trump's head. Donald Trump said recently he has a great relationship with the blacks, though unless the blacks are a family of white people, I bet he's mistaken.
Trump was reported to have left the dinner in a hurry, embarrassed and defeated. The Donald did not run for president in 2012 because he never wanted to in the first place, but if there was any chance of going further with his presidential tease to get a better TV contract, it was dashed in a flurry of jokes at his expense. Obama was re-elected in November 2012, defeating Mitt Romney. By then, Trump's only cash cow was suffering as well. The traditional Apprentice format that gave us Omarosa was completely shuffled off television, replaced entirely by Celebrity Apprentice and eventually All-Star Celebrity Apprentice. These so-called All-Stars did little to improve the ratings, garnering a 1.9 in the key demographic. Something had to be done. The show, his only truly profitable venture, was dying, and his presidential tease only raised his profile so much. Trump could either force NBC to give him more money by becoming a sudden media juggernaut, or use that status for some other venture. Maybe make NBC have a bidding war with another network over Trump's services. He had to go all in, or at least give the appearance of going all in. Trump claimed he would be stepping back from The Apprentice, an apparent power play to get a better contract later on. In June 2015, Donald Trump rode down an escalator to announce his candidacy for President of the United States. Everything was falling into place until he actually started talking. During his speech, he made racist comments that presumably he thought would garner controversy but not interfere with his business dealings. He was right about the first part, but wrong about the second part. NBC was the one doing the firing this time, severing their relationship with Trump. And not only as it related to The Apprentice, which was already on hiatus at this point, NBC also canceled its deals with Trump for televising the Miss Universe and Miss USA pageants. NBC and Trump co-owned those events. So, what to do? Again, if you can't be famous, try being infamous. Remember, Trump does not have any convictions, only blunt prejudices and impulses. Unfortunately, those prejudices and impulses pretty closely resemble fascism. Someone can support fascism without actually reading anything about fascism, in the same way that someone can often operate within implicit biases and social norms that oppress people and enforce socioeconomic hierarchies. Voters are not necessarily scholars, and neither is Donald Trump. He's more of a de facto fascist than an ideologue, but a fascist nonetheless. But that was not his main priority or what he cared about. He cared about ratings and contracts. All Trump wanted to do was announce his candidacy, check. Have something resembling an actual campaign this time, check. Court controversy, check. Claim the primaries were rigged before they even began, check. Lose to an actual politician, decry politics as usual, and go back to hosting The Apprentice or some other program for hopefully more money than he was receiving. No more checks? Uh-oh. See, unfortunately for both Trump and all of humanity, he won. With Trump gone from The Apprentice, NBC brought it back from hiatus. Trump was replaced by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you remember that? Because I do not. Back to Trump. Have you ever watched him and his team walk to the stage after his surprising victory was announced? He looks so sad. This is not what he was expecting. Being president sounds, hard. So hard, in fact, that he immediately checked out after taking the oath of office. There is a treasure trove of reports, one after another, month after month, year after year, during his administration about Trump spending much of his day watching television, usually conservative media like Fox News. There is hard, irrefutable data proving that Trump spent less time working as president than any other president in modern history. Most of his days off were spent golfing. Trump played golf over 300 times as president. The previous president had a similar amount, but over the course of 8 years, not 4 years. In other words, Trump took days off to play golf about twice as often as the guy who was already mocked sometimes for playing too much golf. Trump usually played at one of his own golf courses as a means of advertising his brand. Trump's acolytes pretend he's selfless by reminding us that he did not take a salary as president. And that's true, but that's only because he spent so much time enriching himself and his brand while in office. There are countless reports about this, countless examples. Here are some. It's right there on the screen. Trump did not want to be president, but once he was president, he thought he may as well make a little money. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Trump did want to be president, but he certainly did not want to do the job of being president. I'm willing to concede that he may have wanted the title, the ego stroke, but that's it. He emerged from his cocoon from time to time to advertise himself, cut taxes for the rich, and placate his supporters, even outright fascists. Trump couldn't even bring himself to attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner, a first in about a century. Maybe too many bad memories. So, if Trump did not want to be president, why did he run for re-election? Wouldn't he be happier out of office? There were rumors that he was considering not seeking a second term. There was just one little problem. Okay, a few little problems. And by that, I mean several gigantic problems. Trump just couldn't seem to stop himself from committing crimes. It was his favorite thing to do. He loves crimes. He can't get enough of them. Trump was never going to be indicted while he was a sitting president, though. When the infamous Mueller report was released, it sure seemed to implicate him in a lot of wrongdoing, but it also said that he's the president and we can't arrest him, and that's that. Trump needed to be president a little longer to wait out some statutes of limitations, or at least wait until the heat died down. He could, and did, pardon his co-conspirators while president. He even floated the idea of pardoning himself before being talked down. Trump wanted to stay in office by any means necessary, but not because he loved the job of being president. He just knew what crimes he had done and took advice from disreputable lawyers on how to avoid prosecution. It's not that complicated. That brings us back to today, or last month. Why is Trump running for president again if he clearly does not want to be president? Well, maybe, just maybe, he's only running for president on paper, not in practice. Maybe he finally figured out what he did wrong. See, in 2012, he didn't run for president. He teased a presidential run to boost his profile, but it backfired because people saw through it, including the sitting president of the United States. He got humiliated. In 2016, he ran for real, still assuming and maybe even hoping he would lose, but the people around him tried too hard, racists saw this as their big moment, Democrats got complacent, and he won. 2024 is fast approaching, and it looks like his new plan is to file his papers, make his announcement, and then do nothing else for a long time. Trump used to love doing rallies. Here he is in 2021, and here he is in 2022. Trump used to love doing interviews with media that was friendly to him. Here's an interview from earlier this year. But now, radio silence. Trump wandered to a podium, mumbled like he just took some sleepy time tea, and disappeared, only to reemerge a solid month later to sell the world's ugliest digital trading cards. And that's saying something in the realm of NFTs. Trump is so in his element doing nothing that I'm surprised he hadn't thought of it sooner. Trump has not hired a campaign staff, and he has made no campaign appearances. Sure, it's early, yeah, but nothing except some comments on Truth Social? Other Republican hopefuls have not either, but other Republican hopefuls have not announced yet. Trump was doing infinitely more campaigning before he announced his non-existent campaign. This is his plan. This is his new plan. Not too little like 2012, not too much like 2016. This is the Goldilocks zone. File and nothing else. Running for president allows himself two benefits, and both have to do with his many crimes. First, it lets Trump make money as a high-profile candidate and use that money to fund his legal defense. Second, it may shield Trump from prosecution. Here's how. A candidate for president can still be prosecuted. Yes, of course, but it's tricky. The Department of Justice knows that the current investigations need to be handled delicately because indicting a former president is unheard of and will result in a massive uproar, even violence. See, politicians know that if they go too hard against politicians of the opposing political party, that opposing party will do the same when they are in power. We are literally watching it happen right now. The January 6th commission just wrapped up, and even though it is technically bipartisan, it's still seen as partisan in favor of the Democrats. Now that the Republicans are poised to have a majority in the House next month, the GOP is planning to investigate the investigation and put every staffer who testified through hell. It's political revenge. Democrats and Republicans operate under mutually assured destruction when it comes to investigating each other for federal crimes. Unless it's an absolute slam dunk, the powers that be usually just don't go for it. An investigation? Maybe. An arrest? Almost never. That's why Matt Gaetz was investigated but not indicted. His co-conspirator was charged and convicted, but he's a nobody. Gaetz is a congressman with a vindictive streak, nasty friends, and money. It's pretty obvious what he did, but it's not a sure thing in court because the defense will characterize the witnesses as unreliable. And if he's acquitted or there is doubt, there will be hell to pay. Remember when Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty and the Republican Party turned him into their white supremacist boy prince? Well, he's just a teenager with no political experience or connections, who was merely adopted by the Republican Party, whereas Donald Trump is the former president of the United States and the de facto leader of the party. If Trump is prosecuted while he is a popular figure and a presidential candidate, there is gonna be trouble. And if he's found not guilty, the Democrats are going to lose a lot of face leading into the 2024 election. Basically, if Donald Trump retired from politics, it would be easier for the Department of Justice to move forward because Republicans would not have to reflexively defend him, and Trump himself could not claim that this investigation was about preventing him from retaking the White House. But if Trump is technically running for president, then he will have half the nation crying foul. This is also why Trump wanted to declare himself a candidate much earlier, in February 2021 by some reports, mere days after leaving office, because the sooner he could put up his shield, the better protected he thought he would be. Earlier this year, Trump's residence was legally searched, and what was found there was exactly what the FBI was looking for, and Trump was warned about this for a year and a half. At least by the standards of the feds, this was completely above board and standard operating procedure, except that it was being done to someone who is still a major figure in Republican politics. Someone who had more or less telegraphed that he would eventually announce his candidacy for 2024. Because of this, Republicans abandoned their fetishism of law enforcement over the course of a single afternoon, flipped over tables, and called for the abolition of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Can you imagine what will happen if Trump is actually arrested? And can you imagine what will happen if he is arrested now that he is technically a Republican candidate for president again? Even if the Department of Justice is like, screw it, let's just do it anyway, Trump will have a built-in witch hunt defense. While I was writing this script, Trump was referred for prosecution by the January 6th committee, but there is no way of telling how the Department of Justice will react. It's non-binding, and it's up to the DOJ. If they go for it, the United States will explode, and House Republicans will prosecute every Democrat who so much as jaywalks in Washington, D.C., and every wannabe assassin is gonna load up for a Civil War LARP that might get a little too real. If the Department of Justice does not go for it, Trump wins. He sells more pictures of himself in Party City costumes until 2024, and we prove once and for all that justice does not exist, that we are all subject to the whims of powerful, wealthy people, and that law enforcement exists almost exclusively to control the poor. That's why Trump declared himself a candidate for president. He needs to be seen as a major figure in the party for his own protection. He just wanted more money from NBC. Nobody else in American history has zigged when he should have zagged so hard. Hi everybody. If you like what I do, make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. Also, check out my Patreon link. See you soon.